Alright, so in this video, now let's look at setting up the grade book, putting in grades of tests, homework, things like that of the course. Let's see, I'm going to go into my DMA 060 course here. Now the gradebook is not over here in the 5 buttons area. The students will go over here to figure out where their grades are. If I click on Course Tools and My Grades, that's where a student would go. And again, we'd probably hide a lot of this stuff here so that when the student comes here to find their grades, they're not looking all over the place. They just see the My Grades. But for an instructor to put in grades, we need to scroll down here to on the left-hand side under Grade Center. Now you can just click on this little double arrow to the right to go to the Grade Center page. Now this is a 2012 fall class. Currently I have no students in here. We can look at one later that has the students listed down here. And by default we have their username, student ID, last access, availability. And here's finally some things that we would like to look at, weighted and total. Alright, so let's say you want to change how your grades are weighted. So the first thing you might want to do, if you click on the double chevron, and we can go down to Edit Column Information from the weighted total. Now here is where I can weight my grades. So currently, if I look over here, it says that I can enter the weight percentage for each item. Percentages should add up to 100%. Alright? So let's say I like to have my tests be worth 60% of the course test grade. So I'm going to put 60% here. And usually just keep all this stuff the same. Right now I have a total of 60%. And let's say you would have some other things, discussion, might have that be worth 10%. And if you look over here, these are just the default categories. I don't see midterm, final, maybe some other type of things that you have graded in your course, but not on by the default. Right now we have 70%, but I'm missing like midterm and final. I would like to get those things. So what we would need to do first is I'm just going to kind of cancel this, and I need to make some new categories. So some new categories where I could have midterm, final, things like that. If I click over here to the Manage, bring it on down to Categories, this allows me to create some new categories. By default I have assignment, blog, discussion, journal, self-peer. Now usually in the math department we usually don't have stuff for a blog or a journal or a self-peer. It kind of varies, but we usually do have midterms and finals. So I'm just going to click make a midterm. So I type that in, midterm, I'll submit. And now if I look here, I see the midterm, but I also have a final exam. So I will click on here, type in final exam. And now I have those categories. So first, before you set up your grade center, you might want to think about, well, what categories will I be using in my gradebook? Now that I got my categories all set up, I'm going to go back up to my grade center. Over here at the breadcrumb trails they call it. So now I got my categories, and when I go to weighted, I can go back to the Edit Column Information. Now I'm all set. So I'll have tests worth 60% of a student's test grade, and I'll have midterm be worth 15%. And I'll have final exam. Click this right arrow, make it go over to this other side here, 15%. And click on assignment, because right now I'm at 90%. Click on assignment, make it go over here, press the arrow over, and now I have 10%. So maybe that could be homework or something else like that. So now I see I'm all the way up to 100%. And so now I have my weighted total that when students look at their grades, they can see what they would be according to the weights that I have set. Alright, so that's all good. That's part one. Now the second part would be, well, how could I add in some test scores? So now if you want to add in some test scores, your midterm or your final, go here to create column, make it a column name. So I'll make this be test 1, and I could make test 2, test 3, test 4, call it midterm, final exam, whichever I'm doing. That's the most important one, just column name. You don't need these others. Primary display. How would I like for the students to see their grade? Well, I like to see it written as a percentage. Right? You can make a secondary display. So this would, if I choose letter here, so now if the students saw they had a 92, they would see that as a B according to our 7-point scale. Right? So now here's the important part, category. Well, I've called this a test, so I want to make sure that it gets counted as a test in 100. Everything is all set now. You can have the students show the statistics if you want them to see the grades, not other students, but the average and the median for the course. So you can click that yes, or you can just keep it no by default if you'd like. So now that I submit, what I have started now is that, can't quite, there it is, test 1. Alright, so now I have my weighted total of my tests, and I could keep doing this, making test 2, test 3, test 4. Usually you would see the students here. We can make another video, students' grades here, and I could just enter in some test grades. Also, maybe this is just not all the stuff that you would like to see. Last access, student ID, availability, right? And maybe you don't use the total points. So what you could do is go up here to manage, and then you could do column organization. Now this is a little bit more advanced, so if you like having that other stuff there, that's no problem. But you can hide some of these things. Username, student ID, availability. Maybe I really don't care. I like to see last access to see, well, when is a student coming in to see what their grades are? Or when was the last time they logged into Blackboard? So once I've clicked down here, the ones I want to hide, I can hide the selected columns. So now when a student comes, or when I come, I mean, they just see the last access. Alright, so now I hit submit. And so now it's a little bit more clean. I can see the weighted total, but you also notice I didn't hide the total. I could go back and do that. So in the grade center, you can add categories. That's the first thing you want to do. What are the categories? How are you going to separate your grades if they are weighted? Once you got your categories, you would like to come over here to the weighted total. Make your changes at the weighted total. And then, once all of the thing is set up, start creating the grades that you're going to be putting in. Test 1, Test 2, Test 3, Test 4, midterm, final exam. And then just to polish up everything, if you're kind of OCD, just go here to manage and do a column organization. And those should be the basics to get you started with in your gradebook.